We have a CNN exclusive this morning. Remarkable access inside Myanmar, which is in the midst of a bloody military coup. One advocacy group says at least 550 people have been killed in the past 2 months. Protests continue. They did throughout the weekend, which security officials have been responding to with this brutal crackdown, detaining thousands. At least 11 people were arrested Friday, minutes after being interviewed by CNN. Our Clarissa Ward joins us now live from Myanmar with the permission of the military, who we do want to note is escorting our team. So, Clarissa, what's happening now? Tell us why it's so important for you to be there.
Well, as you said, John, 2 months ago, a democratically elected government was overthrown by the military in a coup after the military suffered what can only be described as a humiliating defeat in the elections back in November. That coup has given rise to an enormous protest movement that has swelled across the country. Put simply, the military does not have the support of the people of Myanmar. And as those protests have swelled and people have become more angered about this coup, so too has the violent oppression of that protest movement by the military. As you said, hundreds have been killed, among them dozens of children. We wanted to come here to report on the ground because, simply put, John, no other journalists, international journalists, have been allowed into Myanmar since this coup happened. Now, we came with permission from the military, with all of the complications that entails, but we still felt that it was of vital importance to come here ourselves, to see what was happening, and to confront the people responsible for the violence.
And so, Clarissa, I mean, I know all of this is delicate, but since you're under the auspices of the military, are you able to report freely?
We had been assured prior to coming here that we would have independence and freedom of movement. We wanted to stay in a hotel in Yangon. That was not allowed. We're staying instead in this military compound. It's completely walled off. We cannot come in and out and move freely. On our first day, we were moving around with a convoy of 6 trucks full of soldiers. In addition to that, we have many minders following our every move. Whenever we do have the opportunity to be on the street, which is very rarely, Allison, our minders are constantly filming everything with their cell phones, making notes, making phone calls, taking records of every single person we talk to and every single movement we make. So it has not been without its challenges, Allison.
Well, they're taking pictures and they're taking names, apparently, Clarissa. So tell us about the people who've been detained after speaking with you.
So this was a very distressing incident, John. On one day, we were finally allowed to go to a public space, to an open market. And it's important to underscore here that we have not solicited contact with any activists, with anyone who's part of the protest movement, because we know, given the context that we're here in, just how dangerous that could be. However, when we took our cameras out in this market and started shooting video, people started coming up to us. People started giving the 3-fingered Hunger Games salute that has become the emblem, the symbol of this defiant movement. And they came up and started telling us their stories. They told us they were frightened. They told us there is no peace there. And we let them say their piece. We felt it was important to give them the opportunity to have their side of the story on the record. Shortly afterwards, however, we found out that many of them were detained. One woman actually ran after me while we were still at the market, trembling like a leaf, on the phone with someone who said that 3 people we'd spoken to had already been arrested. We had the opportunity, however, to sit down with Myanmar's senior military leadership, the government spokesman himself, and we asked him why on earth these people had been arrested, and we urged him to release them. Take a listen. We went to a market in Yangon, and a lot of people approached us because they wanted to talk to us. They wanted to tell their side of the story. We subsequently found out that at least 5 of them were arrested. We have verified this independently. We have seen photographic evidence in some cases to confirm this. Can you please explain why you would be arresting people for talking to us? What possible crime did these people commit?
They haven't committed any crime. We saw it on the news yesterday, and I asked how many were arrested. 11 got arrested. The security forces were worried that they would provoke others and start the protest in the market, and that is why they got arrested. However, the government is arranging to release them as soon as possible.
We are now very relieved to be able to confirm that at least 8 of those 11 people, and all 8 that CNN knew about, have now been released. And that is really, truly great news. But still, this just gives you such an idea of the situation that these people are confronting here. They can't even say on camera that they're frightened, that they want a better future, that they want democracy without being arrested. That's how threatened the military is by these people and by this enormously popular protest movement. John, Allison?
So Clarissa, why does the military want you there, or why have they agreed to allow CNN to be there if they're just going to arrest everybody that you talk to?
The military wants to get its side of the story on the record, too, and that's important, and we gave them the opportunity to do that. They see the protest movement as being violent, as being dangerous, as being disruptive to the economy. They say that if people allow the process to play out, that there will be elections again within the next 2 years. They paraded a series of victims before us who told us stories about being threatened by the protesters, humiliated by the protesters. They took us to buildings that they said had been vandalized by the protesters. But when it comes to the idea of this 2-year process before which there will be elections, you can understand why very few people here have any faith in that. There were democratically held elections back in November. There were independent observers who attended those elections who did not make note of any egregious fraud or anything of that nature. And yet still the military intercepted and this coup took place. So very few people here actually believe them when they say that there will be another chance at elections. And after more than half a century of repressive military rule, simply put, they're not willing to give up. They're not willing to let go of the hard-won freedoms that they have enjoyed in the last decade.
Clarissa, do you have a sense if the military regime, their power is coalescing or growing at this point? Where is it on the curve as you look towards these elections 2 years from now?
From what we've seen on the ground, the military does not have anything in the way of strong support from the people. What they do have is sophisticated weaponry. What they do have is a large fighting force. There is no comparison in the scale of what you're seeing from the protesters versus what you're seeing from the military in terms of armaments, in terms of funding. And so the military does have that on its side, and it may well be that brute force wins the day here. What's very concerning to so many people, including the United Nations, who've warned that this could turn into a bloodbath, is that as the protesters become more incensed, as the protest movement becomes more violent, this country could be on course for real civil strife, and nobody wants to see that happen.
Clarissa Ward, we are lucky to have you there. The world is lucky to have you there. So we get a window as to what is happening. Please stay safe, you and your team. Thank you for being